Not one, not two, not three, 4 fourth downs. We're getting close to a world where 4-down territory is the only territory for the Lions. Got burned on it last year. Is it the right strategy this year? And championship weekend, 4 champs chomping at the bit. Let's go around the horn for our college football playoff. Lions 34, Packers 31, the 4th down game. 43 seconds left, 4th and inches. A field goal takes the lead, but gives the ball back. I want to win it on offense, Dan Campbell said. Lions convert. They converted on 4 fourth downs. This game, which is amazing if you can do it, 10.5 months ago in the NFC Championship game, as you all remember, second half, it was 2 failed 4th downs in huge spots where field goals would have been points on the board. And the Lions lost to San Francisco by 3, didn't make that trip to the Super Bowl. So there's no sign of the 4th downs stopping for Dan Campbell and the Lions. Kevin Clark, around the horn to you. Is the strategy sound?
I'm always going to be good with this because there's a word for people who abandon their principles in the biggest moments. They're called frauds. And Dan Campbell is never going to be a fraud. Everybody says in press conferences they believe in their team. Very few people build a franchise around that belief. That's what the Detroit Lions have been able to do over the past couple of years. They know they can get that yard. To channel Al Pacino, the inches we need are everywhere, and they're willing to fight and die for that inch, just like the Miami Sharks, right? So that's what they've been able to do. That's what they're building their franchise around. I'm going to be good with it in the NFC title game. I'm going to be good with it against the Packers. I'm always going to be good with it. I spoke to Dan Campbell about this a couple of years ago. He said he was a conservative coach until he was on staff with Sean Payton years ago, and he saw how scared the other sideline would get when they would go for it on 4th down. He would say, that's what I want to do to opposing defenses.
As the only panelist who spoke to Dan, well, maybe not. Mina Kimes, around the horn to you. Please, on the strategy. 4th down. Let's make the whole plane at a 4th down with the Lions.
Yeah, I didn't speak to Dan Campbell about it, but I did have a chance to talk to Amon-Ra St. Brown about this exact topic.
Okay, here we go.
And he told me part of the reason why this works so well for us is we are all bought in. We know on 3rd down, the play calling is oriented towards going for it on 4th down. We know if we fail on 4th down, it is our process. We will get it next time. So it trickles and pervades throughout the team. Is why they do it, and they do it so often, and they do it so well. And it's the doing it well that I want to highlight here, because I think when you look at that particular decision at the end of the game, you have to consider both sort of thinking in the game and outside of it. Within the game, in the second half, Jordan Love averaged 13 yards per dropback against this banged-up Detroit defense. He was absolutely on fire. Campbell is considering that. Do I want to give him the ball back? Not just with a chance to tie, but a chance to win. People forget that. And then globally, yes, they had failed in this game, not just in terms of converting, but in short yardage. But over the course of a season, with 3 yards or less to go, the Detroit Lions have converted at the highest rate in football. Dan Campbell knew that, he believed in it, and he was rewarded for it.
David Dennis Jr. around the horn, too. You saw them fail and lose a chance to go to the Super Bowl last year on 4th down. You saw them succeed last night. Is the strategy sound?
Well, I spoke to Mina Kimes, who spoke to some people with the Lions, and I am of the belief that this is the right decision to make. I agree with it. Before, what we talked about, there are 2 teams in the league that I feel like could do this automatically at any time. It's the Ravens and that's the Eagles, because they have the triple threat sort of offense going on. But what we saw last night was an offense that was pretty much unstoppable with the run. The difference what we saw at that 49ers game, they were dropping it back and they were going to pass plays. This one, they had Sonic and Knuckles there, and they could run the ball right up the middle, which is exactly what they did. And the thing with Dan Campbell that he does is he sticks to this. We see so often that coaches go in the first half, they make one decision, but when it's clutch time and they have to really stand on business with their decisions, they back off, maybe kick a field goal. He sealed that game with that decision last night.
Dustin Tinsley, around the horn of you.
I don't really care if the strategy is sound or not. It's them, and I respect the hell out of that. Allow me to use this stage to personally apologize to Dan Campbell. When he came in talking about biting kneecaps, I was like, oh, this thing is going to hell in a handbasket real quick. But guess what? The Detroit Lions in their entire existence had one 12-win season. They have 2 12-win seasons and 4 seasons with Dan Campbell, and that's all that starts at the top, because when you look at this team, they know who they are and they're comfortable in their own skin. Just think about life, period. How many people walk around the world trying to appease other people and not be themselves? That's not the Detroit Lions. They know they won't win a Super Bowl by not being themselves. So honestly, Tony, the greater risk is not being themselves than how they play. And because they can do this anywhere. They're 9-1 in primetime games.
Profound advice for all of us. Any other takeaway from last night, Green Bay or Detroit's perspective? Mina Kimes around the horn.
Yeah, I thought that the Packers defense actually played really well against the run, but you saw why this is such a challenging matchup for them. Jared Goff, 10 for 10 off of play action. It felt like every time he wanted to hit that deep dig over the middle of the field, he could in key moments, and that to me is a weakness on this Packers defense, the linebacker group in particular. So while the offense did obviously rise to the occasion, it was a very close game, I do worry about that defense.
And Kevin Clark, a takeaway?
I'm feeling okay if I'm the Packers. I don't think this was a blowout. I think this was competitive. Jordan Love's ability to stand there in the pocket under pressure and make those passes was encouraging. We'll see it again in January.
I just got to say one stat. Jared Goff completed 5 passes to 6 different receivers. That's the first time that's ever happened in the NFL. That's a ridiculous stat.
Look at you. The man with the ridiculous stat gets ridiculous point bonus. We'll move
Makes
on.
one to know one, Tony.
Bill Belichick and UNC. What is the story here? Inside Carolina had it first, the report that they met. Can you imagine how much he must have blew their mind in the meeting? It's blowing my mind just imagining Belichick back to school. We had to imagine there were going to be NFL jobs this winter that were ready to pounce on Belichick, just like we imagined last year. But now UNC, Mina, is there any way this will happen, and what is it really about?
I don't think so. It can be hard to know what to take out of meetings or reports like this because sometimes there are pre-existing relationships between him, people at the school. Maybe he likes the area and wants to live there. You never know. What it tells me, though, is this, Tony. Bill Belichick absolutely wants to get back to coaching. Unsurprising, right? But whether or not there will be an NFL job open to him, that, I think, is open to speculation. And I do believe Bill Belichick wants to break that wins record and would like to get back to the league. I'm not so sure the league is going to take him back. And if that happens, he might go back to college.
What's holding the league from taking the winningest coach or one of the winners ever, Mina?
I mean, I think watching the Patriots this year, you see 2 things. 1, wow, Bill Belichick was an amazing defensive coach. Things have fallen off without him. 2, Bill Belichick left this roster in shambles, particularly on offense. And while he might not want or insist on being the GM of a new organization, I think as an owner, you look at that and look at his influence there, and you do have questions, especially if you have a young quarterback.
Kevin Clark around the horn of you.
Yeah, I'm impressed with UNC here. They went from a guy who was born in 1951 to a youth movement and interviewed a guy who was born in 1952. No, but I think this says a couple of things. Number one, I think he's kind of trying to smoke out the NFL here because you put out that you're interviewing for college jobs. Are you going to see if McCaskey's going to call you and say, wait, hold on, wait a month, we're going to have something for you. It's a pretty common tactic, but I also think there's a possibility, as Mina said, the jobs aren't going to be open in his favor. I mean, would you trust Bill Belichick with a young quarterback after what happened with Mac Jones? I don't know. You would not trust him to be the GM, obviously. And I think that the situations where there are good GMs and strong rosters, they may not come open. We'll see what happens in Dallas, but this could be a viable path here for college.
Justin Tinsley.
All this strikes me as this is a guy who is, desperately trying to write his own ending, and I think that's understandable. Obviously, he's the greatest coach of all time, but has a .450 winning percentage without Tom Brady. Mina just mentioned Don Shula and being 14 wins behind him. But look, here's the thing. Bill Belichick is 72 years old. He's the greatest coach of all time, but he's a short-term solution in a position that you hope is a long-term fix.
Mm-hmm. David Dennis Jr., anything to Belichick and UNC?
So, look, Bill Belichick is a boomer, but he's acting very millennial on social media right now. And what do millennials on social media do when they want to let people know that they're outside? They post a little thirst trap. And this is Bill Belichick posting a little thirst trap, reminding everybody that he is outside, that he is looking for a job. Come holler at Bill. That's all this is. I don't think he's going to UNC. I don't think he wants to convince a 17-year-old to come play for his team. I think he wants back in the league, and he's letting everybody know that he is on the market and the streets are calling.
Let that be the last word on this. Buy or sell next. Championship weekend. All right, 4 champs right here, chomping at the bit. We'll get into it in 2 minutes.
Welcome back to Around the Horn, coming to you from the Seaport. Brought to you by Patron. Perfection starts with Patron.
Championship weekend, let's go around the horn. SEC Classic, Georgia, Texas, in October. The first meeting, not a classic beauty, great personality though. Carson Beck had 3 picks. Still Georgia led 23-0 at one point. Ewers struggled as well. This was the water bottle game, people. Georgia won 30-15. Bulldogs last week just barely getting here. Needed 8 overtimes versus Tech. Longhorns, are they playing their best ball either right now? It's a tough read, but a tough read never scared you, Mina Kimes. How do you see this one? Who should feel best going in? Do you expect it to look like that Georgia win from 2 months ago?
I don't, and I'll start there because looking back at that win, it was some fluky stuff kind of happened.
Yeah.
Georgia's defensive line teed off on Texas, 7 sacks, tied for the second most, in Kirby Smart's career there. 39% pressure rate, and Carson Beck actually didn't play well. He already threw a bunch of interceptions, but they just weren't able to make him pay for it. I think that changes this time around for a couple of reasons. I think Texas will be able to run the ball as they have recently well, and that defense, man, that is holding teams to like 13 points per game, I think they're going to be the difference, and we're going to see Carson Beck struggle again.
So you've got Texas. David Dennis Jr., how about you?
Yeah.
So this game will not be like the last game, but I still have Georgia winning. I'm with Mina about some of the wacky stuff that was happening. Even though they scored a ton of points, they only had 2 drives that were longer than 35 yards. This will be an offensive rock fight between 2 quarterbacks that I have a whole lot of questions about. The only people I have the most faith in, if I had to take away from one person, is Georgia and their pressure. The 2 games they've lost, they got the 2 fewest pressures on the quarterback, and I think that they will ramp that up, and they'll have enough defense to hold a low-scoring game and take a win.
Justin Tinsley, how about you?
Yeah, I'm also on Texas because they know if Quinn Ewers throws the ball 49 times again, they're going to lose. And if they give up 129 yak yards, they're going to lose. So I expect 2 things from this game. Mina mentioned the running game. I expect Wisner, who has back-to-back 150-yard games, to be a big factor in this game. And they're going to first force turnovers. Texas had 18 interceptions all season. That's 3rd in the country. And guess what? Carson Beck has a propensity to throw them in bunches, as we've seen in this matchup before. So I got Texas.
Kevin Clark.
You just mentioned the water bottle game. I just have to say the AP reported Texas concluded its investigation and they couldn't identify anybody who did anything wrong. There were 10,000 people throwing water bottles. You couldn't find one of them? All right, but I digress. Here's the thing. Kirby Smart is as good a coach as there is in college football. He's probably the best. He's the closest there is to Nick Saban still left in college football. He understands how to play a team a second time. In the first matchup, Texas was 2 of 15 on 3rd down. As Mina already said, 39% pressure rate. I don't see any way they're unable to do a similar type of thing here. I like this Georgia team. I like them to win.
You like this Georgia. You don't like that Texas team. You're not onto them. You don't think they're that good. He says. You don't like them. Okay.
They're fine.
One thing, Bevo, not traveling to this game. 1,700 pounds of horn span, 58 inches. According to the SEC spokesperson, they don't have an enclosure big enough. We here at Big Horn feel your pain. Too big for a pen. We'll move on. Big Ten Championship. Oregon carrying that number 1 for months, undefeated, locked into that bye and bracket spot, but they need to win here to keep it. Penn State is at the 5, but likely will not stay there. A win moves them up. A loss, you would imagine, moves them down, but who knows? On the field, Oregon's speed could loom large in this one. Jordan James in the run attack. And Penn State's defense, especially in the red zone, that looms large. David, is Oregon as good as the bona fides? Can Penn State pull the upset, and what happens if they do?
Yeah, I think Penn State can pull the upset, especially with that disruptive Abdul Carter there on defense, who is going to wreak havoc on that team. But the question I have, though, is if you're Penn State, do you actually want to win this game? Like, you can be in the 1 seed if you possibly win, but if you lose, you may just stay in the 5, and that puts you against a 12 seed, and then, going to the worst conference champion, as opposed to being at the 1 and maybe having to play somebody like Alabama in the second round. I kind of would want to prefer that 15.
Interesting strategy. Does David Dennis want to win this show? You're in the 5 seed right now. You don't think they would drop with a loss and Notre Dame would move up? Justin Tinsley, around the horn to you.
Yeah, I think James Franklin finally wins a big game against a top 5 opponent. Remember this name, Tyler Warren. He's top 5 in receiving receptions, yards, and touchdowns for tight ends. He's going to be an integral factor in this game. So to be him, a mix of that running game, and we already mentioned that stout defense. And this is why Penn State will be a Big Ten champion.
Wow, so that's 2 for Penn State. You don't think Oregon's that good, Tinsley? Kevin Clark around the horn.
Not a believer.
David Dennis, you play to win the game. You don't play it just to play it and get the 5 seed, okay? This year, Penn State has been the second best defense in the country against Power 4 teams. That will continue. Oregon has scored 31 points in 10 games this year. Penn State has not given up 31 points once this year. I like this matchup. It has been 21 years since every team in the country entered the postseason with 1 loss. In this year of parity, and we're going to just get more of it as the years go by, I think it's a fitting little stat.
Wow, so that's 3 for Penn State, and you don't think Oregon's. You don't think anybody's good, Kevin Clark, it sounds like. Mina Kimes, how about you?
Everybody's a fraud.
I will bravely pick the number 1.
Thank you, Mina Kimes.
Look, can Penn State do it? Yeah. They can run the ball, which mitigates Oregon's ferocious pass rush. They can also stop the run extremely well, which helps against Oregon's rushing attack. The problem is Oregon doesn't just need to, or probably isn't a team that only wins on the ground. They also win through the air, and I think that's where Penn State.
And that speed indoors at Lucas Oil, that could favor Oregon as well. One more story here. It's the rest of the championship games. We're looking for chaos, all right? You have that Big 12 matchup, that classic Big 12, Iowa State, Arizona State, and that Mountainous West, UNLV, Boise State, and the ACC. What if Clemson were to take down SMU? How would that rework the bracket? Kevin, what type of chaos are you expecting?
I'm expecting UNLV over Boise State. I'm also expecting SMU to beat Clemson by multiple scores. This is one of the best teams in the country. Their defense is underrated.
That's a team you believe in. Okay.
9-0 with them.
Mm-hmm.
That is a team. They could win a playoff game. We're not talking enough about them for January.
Mina Kimes?
I'm going to go UNLV as well. Last time these teams played, they held Ashton Jeanty to under 4 yards per carry, which is just about impossible, selling out to stop the run. And after all of the brouhaha about the quarterback leaving, they've actually been pretty good on offense. This is good.
David Dennis Jr.?
Make that 3 for UNLV. Their loss against Boise State was a little bit fluky. I expect them to, win this. And, you want to win this game.
Oh, this is the game you want to win. How convenient. Yes. Justin Tinsley, how about you?
You want to see carnage, you want to see chaos. Look at UNLV's defensive line and look at Boise State's offensive line. But I got Boise State in this game because you know what? We need at least one Heisman finalist in the college football playoff.
Yeah, he's playing for the Heisman this week, Jinty. And nobody's thinking that puts him over the top. Kevin Clark admitted, you are just... No, I'm giving Tinsley the point there for the Jinty because I'm Team Ash and Jinty for the Heisman. Clark, you don't think any team is worthy after what happened to your Miami Hurricanes last week? Admit it. This is about Miami last week. This isn't about the rest of the college football landscape.
Not only is everybody a fraud, I'm a fraud.
But you're a fraud. You're our fraud. You're into the showdown with Justin Tinsley in 2 minutes. Tinsley, Kevin Clark, good luck in showdown. Sunday night football preview. Chargers at Kansas City. First meeting was actually not one of KC's last-second wins. It was 17-10. It was Harbaugh punting away after the sack on 4th down with 3 minutes left and never getting the ball back. The anti-Dan Campbell. KC, you're a KC. What's on the line for KC? What's on the line for LA?
I hate the idea of statement games normally, but not in this instance. The Chargers get to announce themselves in this division both this year and going forward. They'll probably make the playoffs. To me, the key here is Derwin James playing his first game against the Chiefs this year. He's allowed 5 completions all season to tight ends. He's a difference. I like the Chargers in an upset.
Wow, that is a great stat.
You know, I'm actually going with the Chiefs. If they win this game, there's a 61% chance they get the 1 seed, and they know they want home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I have a crazy stat for you too, Kevin. Patrick Mahomes, 34-5 in his career versus the AFC West. I'm still going with the top dog in that conference.
Good stat. But I'm partial to that Derwin James stat. That's incredible. We'll move on. A preview of Sunday's Seahawks-Cardinals game, which will go some of the way to sorting out the NFC West maybe, but who are we kidding? Yeah, we know it's coming out of the last week. Seattle, Arizona, though. Justin, who is better team right now?
Hey, salute to my girl, Mina Kimes. I'm going with the team that's on a winning streak. That's the Seattle Seahawks. In the last 2 games when he's been pressured, Kyler Murray has a 15 QBR. And guess who's coming to town? Shout out to my dog, Marcus Spears, big man balling. Leonard Williams is on the prowl, baby.
Casey?
All right, so a couple things here. I think the Cardinals are really, really good. Kyler Murray leads the NFL in yards per attempt in rushing by a quarterback. And then beyond that, their defensive line, which was a huge question mark going into the season, has the third most sacks in the last 6 games. I like them. I think Jonathan Gannon mismanaged the game last week. This is a good team.
Ooh, tie score. KC, 3 words or fewer. What would your FaceTime be?
College football championships.
So we just talked about that. Justin Tinsley, how about you?
2 words. Randy Moss.
Let's do Randy Moss. FaceTime.
So it was announced earlier today that our colleague Randy Moss would be stepping aside from his position on Sunday NFL Countdown for a while for a personal health challenge. Randy, we've never met each other personally. Just know you're in my thoughts and my prayers, brother. You ruined Thanksgiving for me forever. But just know the love in my heart that I have for you and everything that you've done. I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see you back on TV soon, my brother.
You ruined Thanksgiving. You're talking about 3 for 163 and 3 is what you're talking about.
Oh, 1998, yes.
71.5 hour break. We'll see you Monday around the Horn.